I read somewhere on the internet once that someone said the best shows are the ones that get cancelled because it's almost impossible to end a show stronger than it started. The evidence clearly supports it. Most shows don't land on 2 feet, and some twinkle away into nothingness, and some are even more unlucky to not even get that respect. It is unfortunate. You grow up with these characters and environments, and to see them fizzle out of the collective cultural importance is sad. This has happened time and time again. A couple of years ago, I was looking for a thing to watch to kill my time, and I was reading reviews on pretty much every show I could find my hands on. One little animated series by AMC stood out, mainly because it looked slightly similar to one of my other favorite shows, Young Justice by DC. Although I didn't watch it then, it had been living in my notes app ever since. Over time, I heard the show got cancelled after one season, and I really didn't think much of it or bother to check it out. But recently, one of the many sessions of mind-rotting TikTok scrolling that we all seem to call falling asleep these days, I noticed a sudden rise in clips from Pantheon. Not that I haven't seen clips of it before. Every show has its devoted fan base, but this time it caught my attention. It was all over my For You page. Honestly, when I heard about Pantheon and read the synopsis, I had heard that it was basically a story about if Steve Jobs wanted to be an anime villain. I assumed this was some sort of joke or an in-joke whenever I heard it, but one of the fight scenes in the show that got plastered all over my FYP said otherwise. It was literally a guy with a striking resemblance to Steve Jobs fighting a guy who looked like a dad and another who looked like Indian Satan. Color me intrigued, I suppose. Pantheon blew me away. It was a show that started slow and almost ironically slow for the pacing it had at the later halves of its climax. But before we talk about why Pantheon is such a good show, we should talk about what it is. Pantheon, aptly named, is fundamentally about the speed of evolution. Like many shows that edge on the cusp of innovation, Pantheon starts it with an innocuous tech race between multiple companies to create the first uploaded consciousness. But it isn't as easy as scanning your brain into a machine. Well, technically it is, but The plot begins to explain how UI, uploaded intelligence, is a near god tier way to be human. To fully use your brain and be disallowed of your mortal coil forever. Better for you, better for the planet, but for everybody. And where most sci-fi and fictional science struggle, Pantheon doesn't. This is owing mainly to the way they structure the reveals in technology. The absolute genius of the show is the way it portrays thought. How a person should behave. Their brain was given what is essentially endless computing power. What begins as a simple, I don't want Apple to use my dad to revive its dad plot, devolves into utter chaos, as it would pretty much literally in the real world. And the question becomes a matter of consent. Is it ethical to tamper with someone's mind in order to make them more productive? Are the parts of a person that work for a company, knowledge, all that career and company property, the company's property? Pantheon jiggles and juggles so many of these parallels in its own in-universe logic, and throughout the first season it asks many questions and more interesting ones from the viewer as the episodes progress. Everything from what is a person to is it really human trafficking if you have multiple backups of someone's memory? There is, however, a far more pressing question among these ethical ones. If you back up yourself to the cloud, aren't you technically immortal? While many other stories would just take it that way and glance off the practicalities of running a data center to house someone's entire brain, Pantheon doesn't shy away from it. In fact, it's one of the main plot points. Turns out you aren't immortal if you upload yourself. Turns out if you force a brain to think hard enough and do it fast enough, it too will run out of power, or at least turn you insane. Because people aren't machines. People aren't computers. This isn't AI, this is something else. Integrity is what Pantheon calls its deus ex machina, a cure for the fault of being a human, an uploaded human. A cure that gives birth to a new pantheon of immortal UIs. But the real kicker of the show isn't any of the uploading people. It's the real human story in the midst of it. About fucked up families and how far people go for their ambitions. It's a story of the burden of expectation. How hard is it being the gifted kid? How even adults are just kids in bigger bodies, and how you can fall in love with the kindness of a stranger. Self-sacrifice, the meaning of life, and the human story. Just cranked up to the edge of fucking space-time.
117,649.
What?
117,649 years. Caspian is here.
Trust me, the ending of this show will break your brain. Someone once said that it is almost impossible to end a show stronger than it started. That the best shows are the ones that get cancelled. And I believe them. Pantheon got cancelled once, just came back from the dead. I think everyone should watch Pantheon. It is a beautiful story, self-contained, that is told from the lens of normal people doing normal things and having to live in a world that evolves faster than they grow up.